We just let him go around the room and say things like all my friends gave me a golden shower, look I have a video. What NSFW fact did you learn at an embarrassingly late age? Hey viewer, I'm so glad you came back for another storytime with your favorite narrator Andrew the automaton. Before we start the video, why not like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell button so that you don't miss any more chill storytimes with me. With that being said, let's get into the video. There's more than one size of condom. A proud micro-tiny user myself. My brother went the first 22 years of his life thinking that every woman in the entire world got their period during the last week of the month. That tampons stay inside the woman. I thought they went in the bathroom, popped one in, and it soaked up all the blood, then they removed it and were good for a few hours. What a wet dream is. I remember in school being taught, but not knowing what it was. I even remember answering the question on a sex ed TED, wet dreams are also referred to as nocturnal emissions. Blah blah blah, but I had no idea what they were talking about. I always thought a wet dream meant you peed yourself. Women wipe themselves with toilet paper after going pee. Was in my mid-20s when I found that out. I'm a registered nurse and I told a patient I needed her to put a tampon in before we collected her urine sample because she had vaginal bleeding. She looked at me like I was an absolute idiot and said, "You can't do that if you put the tampon in, how can the pee get out?" Mind you, this was a 25-year-old woman who also had 2 daughters. It took about 10 minutes of explaining for her to understand that you don't pee out of your vagina. I still don't think she believed me. I had to explain sex ed to my college roommate who was having sex with the 40-year-old pizza delivery guy. Unprotected, I had to explain pregnancy, birth control, the process, everything. She thought I was crazy. At 18 years old, I had no ducking clue that balls just moved on their own. I sat and stared at his ballsack for a good 10 minutes, just in absolute awe. I felt like I was tripping on acid. The skin moved up and down, swirled around, turned to the left. I have never had my mind more blown than that moment of watching balls move around for the first time. Edit, goddammit guys, my highest comment is about balls. I thought this was a known fact that the skin can just move right before your eyes. Fascinating, is it not? For whatever reason, I grew up thinking that men were supposed to have 3 testicles. I was a 13-year-old boy before learning the truth. I thought I was deformed, or maybe my 3rd ball just hadn't developed yet somehow. I'm not really sure what I was thinking. I just remember the absolute embarrassment I felt when one of my friends found out about this misunderstanding. Cum is supposed to leak out of a woman's vagina after sex if she's walking around. I never really thought of it until my last girlfriend mentioned it, suggesting it was weird, then I read about it on here, someone mentioning that it's normal. We broke up afterwards, so she still doesn't know. Not me, but I had a friend who basically explained that he didn't know that if you had a vagina you still had a urethra. I think he was in high school before he learned otherwise. He just thought that the labia essentially acted as floodgates, and when you needed to pee they would open like a trap door, and your urine would just fall out. I still laugh about this. Not me, but an old roommate of mine. He comes in and asks me if my husband and I were gonna have sex that night. I told him probably not because my husband got home late. He then asks me if his girlfriend can have one of my birth control pills because they didn't have any condoms. I told him no because I have to take it. He asked me why because I said my husband and I weren't gonna do anything. I told him you have to take it at the same time every day for it to work. He looked at me like an idiot, and that was the day I had to explain birth control to my 23-year-old roommate. When I was a sophomore in high school I was awkward and regularly picked on. I thought I was super cool wearing La Lux hair gel to style my hair with the duck butt. The stuff often dried and peeled and left white chunks in the hair if you touched it too much. So at the lunch table this girl goes, "It looks like you have jizz in your hair," and I didn't know what that word was, so I just said, "Yeah I do," and then nobody talked to me the rest of the day. I quote the it crowd all the time. Even still now, I'm 22. So it's pretty sad to begin with. Thing is, I'd frequently high-five people and belt out Eiffel Tower. When doing so, it'd often be met by a couple of laughs whether they've seen tick or not. However, when I'd start doing this to my friends who are girls, they'd often pull a weirded out face, some flat out saying what the duck. After a quick Google last year, I discovered that an Eiffel Tower is a threesome sex act. I was like 22, now 26, when my boyfriend said something about finding my pee hole. I thought I had been peeing out of my vagina. I used to think that every time I had to pee on my period, I had to remove my tampon. Edit. I guess I probably knew there were two separate holes, but y'all, I swear it felt and still feels the same to me. Apparently, Netflix and chill has a slang meaning I didn't know it had. While getting my hair cut the other day by a 20-something hairstylist, the conversation turned to what we were doing that weekend. Not having a lot going on that evening, I told her I wasn't doing much. She said the same. She said she was just going to sit at home that evening and relax. So I said, "Oh, Netflix and chill?" The look on her face told me, immediately, I had put my foot in my mouth. I simply smiled at her innocently. After a few awkward moments, she said, "You don't know what that means, do you?" I confessed that I didn't. Like trying to explain something to her clueless grandfather, she made me aware of the subtext meaning. So, that was an uncomfortable haircut. When I was in high school, my parents, my best friend and I were going somewhere, parents in the front seat, me and my buddy in the back. While we were driving, my folks were listening to some oldies on the radio. There was an interview with the lead singer of and the Mysterians. In the interview, he said the song 96 Tears was originally called 69 Tears, but they changed the name because they knew the song wouldn't get any airplay with the original title. Me. I don't understand why it wouldn't get played on the radio. 96, 69. They're just numbers. Awkward pause. My best friend leaned into the front seat and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Groovy Brent, I've got this one." Later that day, he explained what I had just asked my parents. I learned in elementary school that babies were made by a male's sperm coming out of the testicles, making its way to a female's egg and fertilizing it. What they failed to mention was how the sperm got there. I thought that the sperm fizzed and foamed through the skin of the ballsack, and you rubbed the fizz foam concoction up against the vagina, while the sperm figured out the rest. I didn't realize the truth until the end of 6th grade when I witnessed my first porn flick with my best friends. It wasn't until earlier this year that I admitted this was my understanding to my girlfriend. My school tried to keep sex ed as PG as possible, never mentioning or showing diagrams of penetrative sexual intercourse. They just used the term sex and intercourse without any sort of context to paint an accurate picture for us. My girlfriend thinks it's absolutely hilarious. I thought it was fairly embarrassing. Knowledge is power. I'm late to the party with this, but this is an embarrassing case of bad women's anatomy, made worse by the fact that I am a woman. A couple of weeks ago, I learned that when pregnant women are told in labor things like "you are 7 centimeters dilated," I thought that they were literally talking about the vagina rather than the cervix. In my mind, the vagina literally just became a huge 10 centimeters open black hole into the body. I only learned a few weeks ago that it is the cervix they are talking about. Did I also mention that I am nearly 8.5 months pregnant? Not me, but I have two hilarious stories about this. I work with surgeons and often they are sheltered sweethearts. Neither of these stories involve patients around. They are either in the lounge or before or after patients are around. Story 1. A few of us were making silly motorboat jokes to each other. An attending, established doc for those that don't know, mid-40s age, walked in and said, "I also motorboat. I have a spot on the lake." Someone had to explain to him what motorboating was. He has 3 kids. Story 2. Ironically, same attending. A resident who is 27, already a doctor, but still training working with attending, was about to get married. He came to the room, boasting about his bachelor party and how it was all his guy friends from growing up, school, and residency. He was so excited to show us and attend the video of all his guy friends, giving him a golden shower. None of us explained that a champagne shower is not called a golden shower. We just let him go around the room and say things like, "All my friends gave me a golden shower, look, I have a video." He and the attending were so into the video, and I couldn't help but gawk and hold back extreme laughter at the situation.
Like and subscribe for more funny, interesting, and scary r/ask Reddit videos.